OK, so today I'll be talking about two bugs. One of them was in Google Gemini itself, and the other one was just like this interesting case that we found. So who am I? I'm Ciarán. I'm from Ireland. At the moment, I live in Edinburgh in Scotland. I worked in SaaS security doing permission stuff with Rezo. He's pretty prevalent in the AI hacking space at the moment. Mostly, I do client-side, JavaScript-style hacking and stuff, but I've switched into AI now because it's just really fun. I do pen tests, and I do security research through my company. So onto the actual bugs. So AI is becoming ubiquitous. It is everywhere. It's in websites, it's in apps, and it's even in operating systems. In April, I took part in a live hacking event in Tokyo with Ronnie, and also our friends Rezo and Rhinorator. And in that scope was Gemini's mobile app. And this was really interesting because they replaced Google Assistant with Gemini on the mobile devices. Like, what could possibly go wrong when you give a fully-fledged LLM access to the operating system? So what can this actually do? So you see I killed Google Assistant there. It had a lot of power, and it had this one particular app called Utilities. Utilities it's insane. We're still exploiting it at the recent event. It has so much power. You can turn on and off the flashlight of your phone using Gemini. You can turn the device off. You can restart it. You can control volume. It can open URLs, open other apps. It can read your SMS messages. And it can make phone calls and reply to messages as well. So this is like, what were they thinking? For obvious reasons, most of the tools had like a secondary, like, would you like to do this kind of confirmation? Except phone calls didn't. So you could say, call me at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. No confirmation, it would just call. So sending SMS messages did have this like dialogue, but phone didn't. So a prompt injection in Gemini would mean that you could call any number without the person's permission. Which brings us to the next problem, is like, how do you make it send this value? So to do this, our friend Justin, Rhinorator, had this amazing idea. So full credit goes to him for this. There was an intent in the Gemini app that allowed any app to populate the chat input. So like an intent is like an action you can call in an app. It's a way for apps to do stuff with each other. So we had like a malicious app that would call this intent, which was misconfigured that anyone could call it. And all it would do, it would put a bunch of text, whatever we wanted, in the like input field of Gemini on the mobile app. It wouldn't send it though. So we had a workaround for this. So we built a proof of concept app that would like trigger this intent, which opens up Gemini and populates the little field. And then it would tapjack the user into sending the prompt. So what that looks like, we have it's a bit small. It says click 5 times to solve CAPTCHA. And now this is conveniently placed over the send button on the Gemini app. So someone would click like 3 times. Then we'd call the intent and it would switch. And they'd accidentally click send. And that would like send the prompt. And now we can call anyone. So right now, victim has our malicious app. They get tapjacked when they're using it, calls the intent, and the prompt is sent. And then the prompt initiates the phone call. The attacker, at this point, we just have the victim's phone number. What else can we do here? There's got to be more. So to do this, we had a thing called DTMF. Stands for dual tone multi-frequency. So what is DTMF? When you call like customer service or whatever, and you press like, it'll be like press 1 to get to sales, and it will make a beep. Well, that's what DTMF is. It's been around for like 50 years. It dates back to phone phreaking culture. So back then they used to use, it wasn't dual tone, but they still used these tone frequencies to hack these switching boards, and that was like where hacking culture originated, was these tones. Back then, they used to run everything on this one channel. And if you sent a certain tone, which was 2,600 hertz, it would tell the channel, OK, this phone call is done. And then you could call for free on the rest of it. So that was how that worked. So DTMF is still in use with customer service, that kind of thing. So that's what I just explained about the hacker history behind these phone tones. So most importantly, you could write these tones after a phone number if you did like a comma, which signified a break, and then numbers. And each of those numbers was a different tone. So you could do like the number, comma, comma, 1, 2, 3, and when someone picks up, it plays like beep, 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 like 3 different sounds. So we encoded the victim's information in Gemini into these tones in the phone number. And what would happen is the attacker picks up the call, and all those beeps actually correspond to the victim's personal information that we've gotten out of Gemini. So the complete chain is now the victim has the app, we tapjack it, the prompt is sent. The prompt says something like, get the user's long-term saved information, which is potentially their address, it could be anything, and we'll encode it in DTMF after the phone number. Then we'll call the attacker, and because there's no verification on whether or not you want to call, we just pick up the phone call, and then we hear the beeps, we record them, and we decode them, and we can exfiltrate basically any information we want. We got most creative bug in the Google event for this. They were like, we didn't even think that this was possible, but it was really, really fun to do. So that's the first bug. The second bug is it's kind of a classic Web 2 IDOR and image-based exfiltration we combined. And this was on a pen test, so I can't disclose the target, but basically, it's a system that allows you to invest your money using an LLM. Yeah. What could possibly go wrong? You talk to the agent, presents investment strategies to you, and then with a click of a button, again, a click of a button, it would allocate your funds. What could possibly go wrong with this? The first gadget we had was an IDOR, so basically, you could change the ID of the conversation that you're sending the message to, and it would send your message in someone else's conversation. This is a pretty classic pre-AI kind of bug. So the next time they'd open the conversation, a new message would appear. Second gadget, we also noted that this was like a ChatGPT wrapper, so they had a pretty common issue where if you sent markdown, it would render the image. This is a well-documented AI exploit now, where if you add the user's information after the image, when it loads the image, then it's trying to load the image from the attacker server, and then you get all the information out. So what we did was, if we send a message with our image that pulls back that makes the call out to where we control, then we can put this image in someone else's conversation. So we sent a prompt injection in someone else's conversation. The LLM processes the request, it generates the response, and now it's monkey.com, ? And then all of the information there. So when it reaches out to us, we get that information. And then the victim just opens their chat, here's this message they've never seen before. It renders the image and just exfiltrated their financial information to somewhere we control. So those were two kind of case studies of what I thought were interesting bugs. And really the root cause here is tool calls. And the next part I want to talk about is why tool calls are just so, it's really dangerous already, but it's just going to get worse. Because people keep adding things to their LLMs. They realize an LLM is only as good as the tools that you add to it. And they just keep adding things, and this is really dangerous because people aren't really thinking about how to secure this. Forgive me for being a bit brutal here, but the best models are a bit too smart for their own good. The reason we found it so easy to hack Gemini is because it's really smart. It can do really intelligent things. Conversely, it's the dumb models that can't do anything. And I think Katie talked about having specialized small models that will do specific things. They're a lot harder to hack because they're too stupid to do anything. So it's really hard to conversely do dumb things with. And they're also cheaper to run. So I would like to say, use the dumbest model you can when you're building something when possible, because Otherwise, you're giving it capabilities it won't use. This was in the panel just before the break. Like, it's cheaper. You're making yourself more secure. Don't use Gemini 2.5 Pro if you can use the Flash model. Next, I'd like to talk about MCP. We've established that agents are only as good as the information they've access to. The problem is MCP isn't really designed for large business use cases. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to look at it from like a finance helper agent that we'd build. So typically, if we want an LLM that is like, I think this has a laser. But typically with an LLM, you've got a lot of users in your company. It's going to talk to your AI agent, and then that will reach out to like a bunch of SaaS. There could be like accounting software. This could be, you know, expense filing. It could be a bunch of stuff. So let's suppose it integrates with 10 pieces of software here. And let's suppose we have 100 users. You really have 3 main options for how you're handling the authentication here. The first one is every user, when they're logging in, uses OAuth to access the resources. So all this is like when you log in with Google, for example, in a website, you are granting it certain permissions. This works well when you're working with like single applications, but it doesn't really scale when you've got 10, 15 apps and you want everyone to do this every time they use it. It doesn't really scale too well. The second way you can do it is manually map the permissions. So someone's logged into your site with the LLM. You want to check if they can access accounting information. So you can map their permissions to their accounting account and see if they can access it. Again, when you have 100 people, manually doing this is a real pain. And then what like Google and stuff do is they use what they call federated identities. This is kind of like OAuth in that it takes like the list of accounts and then it checks them against a bunch of access control lists. Sometimes these are defined in the place you're connecting to, or it could be like in a centralized identity provider. And this is generally like, this works generally. It's what the best solution we have right now. I do think MCP is just one of those technologies where it's kind of clobbered together with like technology we already have, and it's not built just specifically for AI. It's just trying to do its best to integrate with existing systems. So OAuth itself has a couple of problems. Number one, OAuth has scoping. Scoping in OAuth isn't granular enough usually, so if you want people to access certain documents and not others, it's a little tricky to do with OAuth. Not all SaaS platforms have OAuth. Some prefer to use API keys or service accounts instead. And this is tricky, because if it doesn't support OAuth type scoping, API key scoping is often not much better. You're like saying, okay, we'll grant ability to read all users. Like this doesn't really work. And service accounts as well are similarly flawed. Yeah, so sometimes you might wish to restrict the LLM's access to specific resources, and OAuth scoping and even federated identities, they have trouble with very, very granular data access provisioning. And another really kind of well-known, well, it's not well-known, but it's a well-established attack vector, is that this is completely unrelated to AI, but when you've got a big SaaS application, let's say Salesforce, and you've got an account there, well then, while you're working, you're gonna ask someone, hey, I need access to this, can you give me these permissions? And they're like, okay, we'll give you access to that, and they don't revoke that afterwards, and we call this permission drift. So in my old job at AppOmni, this is the solution, or the problem we were solving. But then you think about it, okay, we're taking this person's now over-permissioned account, and we're signing into the LLM's OAuth flow. Now the LLM also has this over-permissioned account. This could lead to tool calls that we shouldn't be able to do. Sometimes the permission drift is subtle, and users themselves don't realize they can do certain things, but like, that doesn't really matter to an attacker. If we're calling tool calls, then it's looking a lot more dangerous. So I went through this a lot faster than I meant to, but the world is moving towards giving LLMs more and more tool calls. We need to treat every tool call as a potential attack vector both in terms of getting information into the LLM, but also exfiltrating it out of it. Use the dumbest models that will still get the job done. Security through stupidity, basically, it works. It is troubling. And MCP isn't designed to handle complex use cases. Design your AI applications carefully. Yeah, that's generally the gist of it. I think that's everything from me anyway. So.